Hey, how's it going, everyone? It's time for JavaScript the game. Today we're gonna have our big discussion about round Tetris. You remember this game? Oh, sorry about that. I'm joined today by the winners of the round Tetris challenge. We've got Nano Robot and Mike E2 on the line. How's it going, you guys?
Hey,
Nano, you with us, man?
Hey- Oh yeah, something's kind of weird is going on with my speaker. Like I can hear your voice. Try.
Oh, you might have to mute me through the appearance or the stream. I'm not sure, but
Okay.
sorry about that. um, but yeah, do you guys want to start by introducing yourselves?
sure. I'm Mike. uh, I've been on code fights for at least a year. My main languages are Swift and Python.
Good stuff. Welcome to the stream.
Thanks.
And Nano.
Uh, yeah. So I'm Nano. Hello everyone. So I've been on Codify for about almost a years, and my main language is Python. I also do a little bit of C++, and JS is something that I do like for fun for on the side.
So
Yeah.
it's funny that neither of you guys have JavaScript as one of your main languages, but you both destroyed this challenge for sure. So nicely done. Both of you guys are like actual computer science guys, right? So like for me, I don't actually officially have a background in comp sci. I'm a math guy. I went to school for math and education, and it's been over the course of the past 2 years or so that I've really been actually getting into this stuff. Over the course of the past 1 year, I've actually tried to sort of treat it seriously and actually learn about algorithms and stuff like that. And I've found that codefights.com has been a huge help in that. But correct me if I'm wrong, both of you guys actually do have like a more formal computer science background.
Uh, sure. I have a master's in computer science.
Right, yeah, okay. So, from your guys' perspective, I'll probably ask a lot of stupid questions, so, have patience, I guess. Like I said, my background is not formal at all. So I'm looking forward to hearing your guys' insights on this.
Sure.
And yeah, to the chat, like I know Mike is sounding a little quiet, but it's an improvement over what it was before. So hopefully he's at least audible enough. But yeah, so I guess we might as well jump into the to the code here, if that's cool with everyone. So I think Mike is going to go first. Mike, do you want to tell us about your algorithm here?
Right. So basically, what we want to do is drop circles until one of the divisions gets to the max number of circles allowed
Mm-hmm.
in the division. And then once that happens, we update the score and clear the division.
And it looks like you've done this in kind of an object-oriented way, right?
Yeah, so like since the challenge was, you know, beautiful JavaScript,
Mm-hmm.
I think we're going for basically the most readable.
I would agree with that. Yeah. Well,
So,
actually, this actually sort of brings me to an important question, because you're a guy with industry experience, right? So like, when I think of good code, I think readability is like a really important thing. Of course, making sure it works and making sure it's efficient seem pretty important as well. But I'm kind of curious about how these concerns are sort of prioritized actually in industry.
so I think it really depends on like where you're working.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Um,
and also what industry, like gaming or is it customer facing?
Yeah. Well,
Um,
okay. So let's look at each of those. So let's say it is a game, for example.
yeah, I think with games, performance is really important. You want the game to be fast. There's no lag in the game.
Right. No drop
So
frames or anything like
speed
that.
is
Right?
definitely important. You
Mm-hmm.
may compromise correctness a little bit. Like if you hit a person, you may hit outside the hitbox a little bit, and it's still um, like it still register that. So
And
there may some.
So that's why you can see all these like speedrun glitches and stuff like that, right? Just taking advantages of those little edge cases and stuff like that. Shouts out to Rainbow Sprinkles.
But with like customer facing application, you can't do that. You have to make sure that everything is correct. Like if you work for a bank and then somebody withdraw $10 and you make it withdraw only like $8, that's gonna be a problem. So
yeah, people are gonna be upset about that. I get it.
Yeah.
Right,
definitely.
and like I guess security and stuff like that as well.
Definitely.
Like confidentiality, those kinds of things. But what about like code readability? How does that factor into all this? How important of a thing is it? Like I hear this mantra, like you should code for the next dev. How does that ring true?
If you are working on like in a big company, readability is like one of the most important things you have to pay attention to. Because if you can save like 5 minutes every time someone reads your code, then you would multiply that number with like the time that you have to maintain the app. Like it's gonna be really big.
And that's money for a big company, right?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Like someone always read your code, even yourself. If you make your code unreadable, then when you go back to it, you wouldn't be able to understand it yourself.
Yeah, exactly, right? So it's like coding for the next dev, but that next dev might be your future self, right? Sort of idea. Okay, so then like what we're looking at here in terms of the code that you guys wrote, would you say that this is like, is this sort of at the level of quality that you'd see in like an industry application then, or are there any differences you'd say?
Mike, you want to go?
Sure. If this were like a large company, like an insurance, government, bank, then this would be fine. You might see more tests.
Tests are definitely one of the things that I want to talk about here. So right off the bat, I'm looking at your algorithm, and like the actual function, like the roundTetris function, is very small, right? It's basically just passing it along all the information to the other parts here. Well, I guess there are really only two other parts, right? You've got the game itself, which you've made an object of it, right? Like a class. And then you've got the tests over here if the run test is set to true and you have it set to false. So basically you would set that to true when you're like debugging or when you're developing it, sort of thing?
Definitely.
So tests aren't something like, this is maybe my most amateurish trait, but like tests are really not something I have a lot of experience with. It's bad, but I don't really write tests when I'm like developing something. So like, I guess my question regarding tests is like, when do you want to use them? How do you write them? Is there like a principle? Like for example, one principle I use for variables is, if I find that I'm doing the same computation or same calculation twice, then I'm going to store it in a variable, right? So are there any principles like that for tests?
So the general principle in industry is like you have to have almost 100% code coverage. So that means that if you have like a bunch of if statements, you have to make sure that the test cover every branch, like every path down the if statement.
Right, I see what you mean. So like all the different possibilities.
Yeah.
And is it basically like just so that if you make a change, you can just run that one function and it'll tell you like if you broke something?
Yeah, basically.
Right, so that you don't find out the hard way later on or something like that.
That is actually one of the weakness of Python.
Oh, really?
Well, so Python is not really strongly typed.
Well, same with JavaScript, right?
That's actually true.
Like basically what you mean by that is you don't specify if something's like an integer versus a string.
Yeah,
like you
so
just
there's a lot of things that can go wrong there. And if you don't test every single branch, bad things can happen.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so then Mike, why don't you tell us about the test runner specifically? Like how is this actually working here? Let's go down to that. It's at the bottom, right?
Yeah. So I only wrote tests for the circle class.
Okay.
And So it has a function called run all tests,
Mm-hmm.
and then it has a number of test methods. Run all tests keeps an array of all those test methods, and it runs them one at a time.
Right. So that's like we basically have the array here, like const tests over here, right? And then we're doing a for each on that to run these, and then we have a console output that sort of tells us, well, basically if it fails, it'll tell us that.
Yeah, if it fails, it'll tell you which one failed, but it'll keep going.
Gotcha. Right. Okay.
Um,
So I guess one question I would have is, at what point, like when you were writing your solution, at what point did you write the tests? Like, was that early on? Was it one of the later things you did?
so you definitely have the choice to do it early on. In my case, it was the last thing I did.
Okay.
Because I actually thought that might be like, a way to win the competition. But,
Well, I guess you're right about that. So nice job. Yeah, because I mean, definitely this is, like I said, something it's kind of a weakness for me. But like if you were writing this as an app, I would imagine this is the sort of thing that you'd introduce like around the same time you introduce the feature that it's testing.
yeah, so you write tests at the same time that you write a method.
Right.
Usually.
Right. So that if you make a change, you'll know if it's failed.
Yeah, that's the main point.
Mm-hmm.
Because and it could be somebody else's code that depends on your method that breaks.
Ah, right. Good point. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, okay. Now, in terms of tests, there's another thing I wanted to ask about because, like, I've seen and heard about tests that actually like use a browser window and will actually like open up the app and like make a new account if it's that type of app and like put some data in the database.
Yeah.
So is that something you guys have some experience with then?
So you mean like end-to-end tests, basically?
Yeah. So
Is that what I mean? Yeah.
Unit testing and end-to-end testing.
Okay, so what's the difference between those? Let's talk about that.
So unit testing is like if you have a class and then you would have a corresponding test class that tests every single method in that class.
So that's pretty similar to what Mike wrote here, right? Like this would be an example of unit tests?
Yeah, and end-to-end testing is like what it tests what the user would do. It opens the browser, it clicks this button, it goes to this step, and it checks to see if like the user would see these things, and then it checks those behaviors to see if it matches what we would expect.
Yeah, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's right.
And so then what would you use for that? Something like a Selenium or a Mechanize or?
I don't know any JavaScript testing frameworks.
Sure, okay.
Usually, I think we have to do it corresponding with the backend. We have like Selenium for Java. And, yeah.
Okay, so basically, but there would be one for JavaScript, I'd imagine, right?
I mean, there must be.
There must be.
Oh, actually, if you are like using React or Angular, they also have that.
Like built in sort
React
of thing?
is?
Yeah, I've worked in React a little bit. That was actually what I was trying to do the roundTetris app in.
So you can do unit testing with React, but you can also, well, it's actually called something else. I forgot the name. But you can also do end-to-end testing with that. I just remember that there's like a difference between some of the testing frameworks. So some framework actually captures the screenshot of the page and it matches with the one that we store, or some just kind of like checks the doc tree, so to see if like there's a button right there or there's a
like the DOM sort of thing.
The DOM, yeah.
Yeah. So then that's interesting. So basically the screenshot based one is basically just comparing two images, like pixel for pixel.
Yeah, comparing two images and see if like differs by 1% or something.
Oh man, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Guys, I have to start writing tests is what I'm learning. Jeez, there's a whole world out there that I'm not getting in on. Okay, cool. So, anything else I should know about tests before we move on from that?
Can't think of anything.
Okay.
Um,
Nice use of the bitwise and over here, a little and equals.
all right.
Okay, so let's take a look at maybe the rest of this. So basically, the round Tetris method here. Well, first of all, I sort of like the way you did this. I didn't think of doing it that way, but basically you added on what's essentially some optional arguments into the round Tetris function, right?
Right.
And you sort of have like some of our default values in here. So this is like the size of the game field, right? How many we can have in a division. So this is something I saw a lot of the other submitters doing, like building in these constants corresponding to like things I did specify in the description, but could maybe change in the future. But I like the way you did it with these optional arguments here. So one question I guess I have is using these as arguments like this, could they be reassigned or are they being treated as constants?
So you would pass in a different number
Mm-hmm.
when you call round Tetris.
Yeah,
So
but sorry. What I mean is like, could I write in another line right here where I say like division max is now assign the value of 5 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like if I just put this line right in here, would it reassign this or would it say like, oh no, reassignment to a constant variable?
oh, well, it would division max would definitely would be equal to 5 at that point.
Okay, so it could be changed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, so then, so we've got these things. We're passing these in, and by the way, I like that just because, like, and I guess there's another topic I want to touch on is like optimization versus extensibility, right? Like, you sort of have these built in such a way that if we wanted to make the game a bit different, like for example, if we wanted to make it much wider and we made this like 800, this would be really simple in your code, right? We wouldn't have to like search for all the instances of this and like, hard code it in or something like that.
Right.
So, sorry, go ahead.
You definitely want constants to be defined only one place.
Yeah, exactly, right? So, okay, I guess this is my question then. Like, and maybe we touched on this already when we were talking about the different types of applications, like whether it's a game, whether it's a client-facing thing, right? Like a banking app or something. But basically, I guess what I'm wondering in terms of this stuff is it seems to me like you have to strike a balance between extensibility and optimization, right? Like, are you going to choose the best algorithm to give you like the juiciest efficiency, shave off like just a bit of runtime by using some kind of really obscure optimized algorithm? Or do you maybe want to take some efficiency losses to make it easier to make changes later so that it could accommodate maybe like different inputs if you decide to change things? So it seems to me you have to strike a balance between those, right? Would you be able to speak on that in terms of what it's like in the industry?
So I haven't worked in game programming, but I'm sure they would definitely be looking more for performance there. So you probably wouldn't even see object oriented there too much.
So wait, is object oriented not like particularly efficient then, or?
Well, it depends how you use it, right? I mean, every time you call new, you're creating a new object.
So it's
And
storing it in memory sort of thing?
yeah, it's allocating the memory, and also with not exactly sure how JavaScript's memory model works, but you might run into stuff where garbage collection needs to reclaim that memory, which might stop your game. You have to worry about stuff like that.
Right, yeah, okay. So actually, can we talk about garbage collection for a minute? My understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong here, is basically that like if you have some value that no variables are pointing to, then it's going to get garbage collected. Am I mistaken on that, or?
I'm not the person to ask because there's different models.
Like different garbage collection models sort of thing?
For different languages.
Yeah, I
maybe
gotcha.
It might even be different for different browsers. I don't know.
Yeah, like different engines sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. Any thoughts on any of that, Nano, by the way? Nano, you still there, man? Uh-oh. You might have lost him. Okay, well, anyway, in the meantime, let's continue with this, Mike. So basically, we're calling this, right? We're returning a new game with basically game height, game width, like the same properties that we have over here. We're basically passing them in over here, right?
Create a game.
Sorry?
Yep, just create a game and set the game settings.
Right. So that's basically what this part of it is doing. And then we have .play and .score after that. So maybe we'll talk about those like one at a time. So let's take a look at the actual constructor for game and what's going on with that. So we've got a class called game. I want to talk about the class keyword in a little bit, but hopefully we'll get Nano back. I don't know. Anyway, as for now, so we've got a constructor here. And I guess that's a nice thing about the class keyword, right?
Yeah. Oh, that you get constructor?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So a constructor is essentially something that happens when you instantiate a new copy of the object, right?
Yep.
And sort of setting things up. So basically, these are all the properties that it's going to have. A lot of these are familiar, right? Like these are basically the things that you're passing in. And then we've got div count, which I think I can see where this is coming from. It's basically just how many of these divisions you're going to have based on the game height and the size of each division. I mean, that one probably pretty straightforward, right? What about this, like this dot divisions? I see an empty array here.
So that's an array of. So that's gonna be an array that holds the divisions, and the divisions are collections of circles.
Mm-hmm. So this stuff over here, right?
Yeah. So each division is its own object, and each division has a collection of circles, and it keeps account of its total score, and each division also has its own bonus that was dictated by the rules of the game.
Yeah, like based on the height of it sort of thing, right?
Yeah, so every time you add a circle, that total is going to increase.
The total, is this the number of circles in there or the like score?
It's the score of the circle that you add.
Right, so basically when you clear a division, you're going to basically give the total plus the bonus is the idea?
That's right.
Gotcha. So I have a question about this because basically these are all the same type of object that you're using for each division, right? And you're kind of setting them up in the same sort of way as well.
Right.
So you might see where I'm going with this. I'm kind of curious why you didn't use a constructor for this one, like why there isn't a division class.
Right. So in this case, I mean, you could do that, but it's kind of a small object, and it doesn't really require methods too much. So.
Okay. So is that sort of the decision-making factor? Like if it's going to need methods?
Well, it's kind of up to you. I mean, the smaller it is, I mean, theoretically, anything could be an object.
Right.
You could wrap an int as an integer.
Yeah.
An object, but I mean,
we've done a few whimsical things like that on the stream before, so yeah, okay. So basically, it's up to you if you want to do this like this way. Like,
I mean, if you, I would say, yeah. I mean, I think that's at the right size where it doesn't really need to be a class.
Right, just 3 things in here. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one more thing. Like, would there be a performance difference if we made a class out of this thing, or would it be kind of negligible?
That's a good question.
I guess we'd have to do a JS perf or something like that.
Yeah, we could try to measure it. I'm guessing it wouldn't be enormous, but.
Right. Yeah. Okay. So basically, divisions. We're pushing in the new division. So after all of this fires, like after the constructor function fires, this dot divisions is going to contain like a bunch of these objects, right? That's basically the idea.
Yeah, just empty divisions.
Right. And then current score, it starts at 0. We're not changing that at all down here. And then is playing starts as true. I'm guessing that's going to become untrue at some point, right? Like maybe we'll find out. So,
yeah.
Okay. Oh, is Nano back? Can you hear us?
Oh yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. I felt like we lost you for a second there. Anyway, glad you're here. Okay, so let's take a look at the rest of this over here. So we got circle is valid. What's this one all about?
So this is a helper method that you might not actually need, but it checks for any circle that is in the input.
Mm-hmm.
If it's not within the game coordinates.
Right, like if you're trying to stick it outside of the boundary sort of thing?
Yeah, then it just skips over that one. So it's kind of a premature optimization, but
It's almost like you kind of have to be really skeptical about what you've received here, right? Like I actually, it's funny. I didn't even consider giving like faulty data like that. You know, like I guess there were a few tests where there'd be like a premature game over. Like there are a few other moves after the game over. You probably noticed that in some of the edge cases here. But yeah, I didn't think to put any that actually wouldn't fit in the screen. That would have been smart. The way I actually built these tests, just FYI or whatever, is I played the game. Like basically I modified the game script such that every time I drop one of these, it would log the X position and the radius. And then I just use those as my tests for the challenge. So it wouldn't have been able to produce an output like that, but I guess I could have manually done one like that. Whew. Wish I'd thought of it. Okay, so all right, so circle is valid. I'm guessing that's something we're going to be checking like pretty regularly, right? Well,
anytime we get a circle, we
right,
validate it.
And that's what play is doing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So we have an I. We're iterating that. We're returning this. Can you help me understand this play method over here? And this is a method of game, right?
That's right.
Okay.
So game, you're passing in the XR,
Mm-hmm.
and those were the original.
It's like the move list, right?
Yeah, the X coordinate and radius for every circle given.
So it's an array. Each of those are an array, right?
Right.
Okay.
So those are passed into play.
Mm-hmm.
Play goes through each and every one, and it checks if each one is valid, and if it is, it drops it into the game.
So I'm looking at this. We've got let I be assigned the value of 1. You're doing an I plus equals 1. And then we're checking here if I is less than x dot length. I'm wondering if there's a particular reason aside from preference that you went with a while loop here as opposed to a for loop.
Well, I think it's kind of a little bit easier to read than the JavaScript style for loop.
Oh, you're not a fan, eh?
So I think, sorry for interrupting. But
I don't take it
what he's
personally
trying
or
to
anything. Sorry, go ahead, Nano.
Oh, I think that if he had used a loop, because he's like checking this dot is playing, he would have to do like an if condition and then break if that is true. So that
Right.
would be kind of less readable to me. I think the while loop is the better choice here.
Yeah, okay, just because it clearly displays the condition under which we want to
Yeah.
continue playing. Okay, so basically mainly a readability thing, if I'm understanding correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Hey, I respect it. I think readability is a really important thing. I place it very high on my list of priorities. Anyway, sorry about that. Please continue. What else do we have here?
Sure. So it validates each circle, and then it drops a new circle object.
So over here, when we see this, like this dot circle is valid, the this here is pointing to the game, correct?
Right. So it's just the game object.
Right, and since this is a method of the game object, we're doing this dot circle is valid. Okay, and then this dot drop a. I'm wondering about this. I had a suspicion because I was looking at this and I was wondering, well, why is it drop a and not just a drop? Is that because you wanted it to look almost like a sentence, like drop a new circle?
Yeah. That's one of the. We try to make it look as close to English as possible.
Right. Yeah.
which is why we use chaining a lot sometimes.
Sorry, when you say chaining, what are you referring to?
Oh, if you look at the very first function at the
Yep.
top,
Like this right here?
yeah, game.play.score.
Gotcha. Yeah,
So
okay.
that's chaining. Yeah.
So where basically you're calling, or you've got an object, you're doing like getting a property of it, or maybe calling a method of that, like kind of recursively almost. Well, I don't mean recursive in like the comp sci sense, but like, yeah, you know what I mean, right? Okay,
we
cool.
take the result of the new game,
Mm-hmm.
and we call play on that.
Mm-hmm.
And the result of that, we call score on that. So that's chaining.
So because we're doing this, like because we want to do this chaining here, because we want to do like the dot play and the dot score, is that why we're returning this on play?
That's exactly why we return this.
Gotcha. Okay, so that we can do score on it after. Okay, so then let's talk about drop A then.
Mm-hmm.
So basically,
Drop a new circle.
yep. And I'm noticing here that the new circle, we're calling this with x at I, r at I, and then another r at I. So actually, wait, before we drop a circle, we should probably talk about circle, right? Because we haven't taken a look at that class yet, right?
Oh, right.
So wait a sec, where is that? Is it above game? Yeah, here it is.
Oh, right. Yeah, so circle is basically a model of a circle. Basically, it's the XY position,
Mm-hmm.
radius, and methods to see where it collides with another circle.
Right. So basically, when you're calling this, or when you're instantiating one of these, I should say, right? You've got new circle. Basically, your your y and your radius are both r at I.
Right. In that case, the default is RI because that's the lowest that it could be.
Right.
If there are no other circles.
Yeah, it's not going to like fall through the floor, sort of thing, right? Because x and y correspond to the center of the circles. Okay, cool. So then basically we're just setting this up. This dot x is x, this dot y is y, this dot radius is radius. And then return this. Okay, so is there like something about this feels a bit redundant to me? You know, this dot x is x, this dot y is y, this dot radius is radius. Do you guys know if there's like a more efficient syntax for that?
Yeah, I think you can just say this equals, and then put in brackets x comma y comma radius.
Right. Okay.
You definitely don't need to return this because that happens automatically from constructor.
Right. So is there a reason you put it in there, or?
There might have been at some point, but it's just that's a typo essentially.
Okay, we'll ignore that bit. All right, so let's talk about the rest of this then. We've got some getters over here, and I think that's sort of an ES6 thing, right? Like that corresponds to the class syntax. Is that correct?
Right.
And Nano, I think you use those in yours as well, right?
Yeah, I did.
So can you guys tell me a bit about getters and setters for a minute?
So in this case, it's a calculated property.
Mm-hmm.
The left side of the circle depends on what the radius is and what the center of the circle is.
Right.
If for some reason x were to change, then you want left to also change. So by calculated property, you only need to change x. You don't have to go find left and change that too.
So then why? Sorry, go ahead.
That's just why it's written that way.
Okay, so then why wouldn't we just say like if we needed this at some point, you know, basically we would say circle dot left if we wanted this, correct? So why not just do circle dot x minus circle dot radius? Like, is it considered bad practice to grab the properties directly as opposed to using a getter to access them?
Well, in other object-oriented languages, you use property methods to get to the underlying property for a number of reasons.
So what would be some of those reasons? I'm curious.
In other languages, one of them would be in a, say, like a multi-threaded environment where you say the property is actually an object.
Mm-hmm.
You want to be able to create that object and have complete access to block any other threads from getting in there before that property is created.
Okay.
It's a little messy. I don't know if that's an issue in JavaScript. I don't think it is.
But so, okay, basically, in other languages, there would actually be like security issues with that sort of thing, right?
Usually.
Oh, sorry, just a sec. Just need to turn the furnace off. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. Please continue.
Okay.
Or if you were going to, I'm not sure.
Yeah, usually just for the usual object-oriented model is private properties and public methods to access those properties.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. It feels a little cleaner that way too, right? I mean, it's kind of like if you wanted to play like, I don't know, a Nintendo Game Boy, you want to be able to just like hit the A button and stuff like that. You don't want to have to like get into the circuitry and like cross some wires and stuff like that, right?
Sure.
I guess that's kind of an absurd example, but yeah, basically just like, I think there's a word for that, right? Like what you want to present to the user, like what you want them to be able to do with this thing. But
what you see is what you get, or
I think I'm more talking about the interface. Yeah, that basically like, yeah. You and okay. Basically, if you're circumventing that interface, then essentially you're hacking, right? That's pretty much it.
Right.
Okay, so when people say the word anti-pattern, I want to make sure I'm using this right. You guys have heard this word, correct?
Yeah.
yes.
Okay, what does it mean?
I do not have the definition. It just means that I'm doing something bad.
Works for me. Okay, so basically it's like it's not the right way, it's not the intended usage sort of thing. So like not using a getter and instead just like from outside the object saying like circle.x minus circle.radius.
It's like it's a bad practice.
Bad practice, right, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. So, all right. Basically, this is a good practice here, right? Using our getters over here. And if we wanted to, we could also use like the set keyword, I guess, to make a change to one of these things. I mean, I guess we wouldn't change left or right, but just like...
Yeah, in this case, it would be the read-only properties. But if you want to read-write, then you would have a set function as well.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay. So, sorry, I guess we kind of went on a tangent there, but let's continue with our circle class over here. So, collides with. This is kind of an interesting one.
Oh, yeah. So this is a circle method, but it also takes a circle as a argument.
Right. Another
action.
circle.
Yeah. And it just, since we know that, in order for them to collide, the right side of one of them has to be to the right of the left side of the other one, and right, this is a little confusing.
I think a visual might clear it up, right?
Yeah.
So basically, if we had a circle like this, right, we'd have the left side over here, and then we've got the right side over here.
Right.
And then we want to check if another circle is going to intersect it. So I don't know, if it's one like this, is that going to intersect? Is it going to collide with the circle?
Right.
Looks like it would, right? And it's because its left side is less than this one's right side, right?
Oh, right.
Whereas if we had one like over here, it wouldn't collide because its right side is less than this one's left side.
Yep.
Okay, so basically that's what these little Booleans are checking, right?
Yep.
Okay. I suppose we could have just returned... this, right? Or like technically just not this, right? Like just return that as a Boolean as opposed to like if this return false, if this return true.
Yeah, that's actually an anti-pattern right there.
Which one is? What we have here or what I just described?
The if this should return false, or yeah.
That's an
So you should
anti-pattern.
just return that directly the Boolean, the condition.
Oof, Mike, he's calling you out, man.
All right. Nobody told me that, so.
We're all learning something today. All right, so good stuff. So we've got collides with, and then we're going to use that in this one, right? Height at collision with. And I think this right here, this method is the real juice of it, right? This is like where it's really happening. This is the core of like sort of the math of the problem, right?
Pretty much. So when two circles collide, you know that the distance between the two centers is equal to the sum of the two radiuses.
And you're talking about, when you say the distance, you mean sort of like the diagonal distance between the centers, right? Like the direct distance?
Yeah, so if they kind of hit on an angle,
Yep.
then then the line from between the two centers would kind of form the hypotenuse of a triangle.
So like that. Can you see that diagram, by the way?
Yep.
Okay. My apologies for it, but okay, so you're saying that would be like the hypotenuse of a triangle, so like a right angle triangle. Guys, how important is math in computing? Like if you feel like you're unconfident in math, are you never going to be able to become a computer programmer? This is a question I get a lot from my viewers.
Depends on what kind of math.
Okay.
Algebra, if you're good at algebra, that's great. That's probably most of it.
So do you mean like linear algebra, like matrices and stuff like that?
No, just regular algebra is probably the most.
It's like X's and Y's, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Linear algebra is important for graphics and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I'm told for like machine learning and stuff too, eh? I'm not sure if you guys have any experience with that, but...
Nope.
Okay. Not you either, Nano?
You talking about machine learning?
Yeah.
Not really.
Okay.
I don't think machine learning has to do a lot with math.
Oh, really? I guess it also depends on like the style, right?
It only is used like you only have to understand the single model of neural network. It's a lot more to do with well, I guess I don't really not really familiar, so
no worries.
I make it wrong there. Yeah.
Yeah, that is a bit of a departure from the roundTetris challenge here, the issue at hand, right? So maybe we should return to that. So where we left off, Mike was telling us about this hypotenuse of this right angle triangle that's forming between the intersection of these two circles. Mike, please continue.
Okay, so what we need to find out is where that top right center is. We need to know the y value.
Right. So like this is pretty core to us. And I'm just writing in because we know that this is, I'll just say R1 plus R2 for the hypotenuse, right?
So we have one side of the triangle there. We can get that top part because we know the x value of both of them.
Right. Okay. So x2 minus x1. But I guess depending on which way they're oriented, maybe be x1 minus x2. So we'll just take the absolute value of that.
Yep.
Okay.
So now we have two sides and we can calculate the third.
How would we do that?
Pythagorean.
Oh yeah, of course. The good old a squared plus b squared equals c squared, right? So basically, if I wanted to calculate the unknown side that I have, that would be c, right? So I'd just do this squared plus this squared.
Where's Mike?
Yep.
Do we lost him?
It. And then the square root of that.
Now wait a sec. Isn't c the hypotenuse?
Yes, it is.
Oh, okay. So we're going to have to rearrange this then. So we're trying to solve for either a or b, right? So we'd want to do like c squared minus b squared equals a squared or something like that. Or even we'll just say a and we'll take the square root of all this junk over here. Okay. Okay. So something I'm noticing, because Mike, I'm looking at your code over here. So okay. Let's do this one step at a time. So first, we didn't, or I don't think we addressed this, right? If it doesn't collide, then we're just going to return the radius because it's basically just flat on the ground, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then over here, you're calculating the hypotenuse. I really liked your use of constant variables over here, just to make it clear what each part represents, as opposed to just putting all of this in one line, which we could have done, right?
Yeah.
So basically we got our hypotenuse, which is this, triangle base, which is this part over here. And then for triangle height, that's where we want to use this formula down here. But I'm noticing something. So you're squaring the hypotenuse, you are subtracting the triangle base squared. I'm not seeing a math.square root. What's going on there?
Oh, right. So you can use the power operator,
Mm-hmm.
which is the double asterisk
Yep.
with a decimal, which is 1/2, which gives you the square root.
Yep. So that's an exponent law for anyone who's unfamiliar with it. Basically, a number to the power of 1/2. That's the same as taking the square root of that number. So I'm curious if there is a particular reason you wanted to use this as opposed to a math.square root.
Less characters?
So like, well, okay. Now I have noticed that you, I seem to recall you've submitted quite a few solutions to the shortest character problems, the challenges on codefights.com. So is this a code golfing habit that you've picked up?
Yes, actually from Python.
Oh, really? Okay.
So,
Is it the same in Python, the double asterisk?
yes.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that I feel like that's newer to JavaScript, eh? Like I think that's an ES6 thing.
I don't know.
I think so.
Yeah, okay, cool.
I don't- yeah.
All right, so at the end here, then we're returning other circle.y plus triangle height. I guess that's because what we found for triangle height is just the difference in the y values between them, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool. All right, so we get that. And yeah, so that's height at collision with other circle. But so far, we're looking at these and we can see this takes in an other circle, this takes in an other circle. But we haven't actually called these methods yet. So I'm curious about where we're actually going to see the other circle thing happen, right? So let's maybe take a look down here. Where did we leave off? We were doing this, right? So this is where we instantiate a new circle. So basically at this point, when we do our new circle, we basically just have a circle that has an x value of x, or x at I, a y value of r at I, and a r value, radius value of r at I.
That's right.
Okay. And then we want to do drop a new circle, right? So we're calling this method over here. Let's talk about this one. What have you got for us, Mike?
Sure. So to drop a circle, we want to find the highest point in the game board where it contacts another circle. So in order to do that, we're going to check it against every other circle on the game board.
Okay. So I'm noticing the first thing I see here is this dot division. So first of all, the this is still corresponding to the game, right? So we're saying for each one of the divisions.
For each division, we're going to go through all of that division's circles.
Right, so the circles are being stored not just in the game, but specifically inside the divisions where they live, right?
That's right.
Okay.
And we're going to find the y value where our circle collides with each of those circles in the division.
Okay, yeah, so we find that y value, and then we're reassigning, I guess, the y value of the circle to the biggest one we can find, right?
That's right.
So basically we're comparing it to its current y value. We're saying we want the maximum of that y value and the new y value we'd get when we call height at collision with the other circle.
Yeah.
And we just looked at that method before. Other circle is something that we're getting from our, basically our division, right? The circles that are inside that division. So I like this, Mike. I think this is I think it's smart. I like the way you sort of compartmentalized it, that the circles don't just live like out in the wild. We don't need to check which division they're in. I noticed a lot of the other solutions, and I think mine included, basically just had a bunch of circles, and we had to calculate like what division they're in based on like some kind of division, modulus, that kind of stuff. So this is smart. Nice job.
Thank you.
Okay. Then we say if circle.y is greater than this.game height. Well, why are we doing that?
So this is where we check if the game's over.
Right.
If point y is, if it's too big to even fit on the board, then that's the end of the game.
Right, we've entered the danger zone. Okay. So then that's why we do return, because we don't want this to continue at all?
Yep.
Gotcha. But if it were to continue, we would do these two things. So what are those all about?
So we need to add the circle to the game, which means
Right.
we need to add it to a division.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to figure out which division it belongs to.
Right. So we needed to know the y value in order to figure out which division it's going to belong to, right?
That's right.
Okay. And division size is just a constant. It comes from above, right? And then, or I guess it's technically not a constant, but it's one of the initial arguments supplied in the function.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this over here, we're basically just calling the add circle to division method, which is right here, I guess, right? So,
Yep.
Okay, it's being called with circle as its first argument, and then this dot divisions, division for this circle, which is this one right here. Okay, cool. So then, actually, hold on a sec. So division for this circle is just the index of the division that it's in, correct?
Yep.
Okay, so it's not until we do this dot divisions at this that it becomes an actual like division object, like what we saw above, right? These things?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about add circle to division, and I guess we're getting close to the end here. All right, so add circle to division. What can you tell us about it?
So our two parameters are the new circle and a reference to the division that it's going to go into. So
Right.
we insert the circle into the division, and then we increase the division's total with that new circle's value.
Yeah, and that total is basically this over here, right? Like this total from before.
Right.
Okay.
So that total. Okay. And
Sorry.
And now we need to check if our division has reached the limit where it needs to be cleared.
Right. So that's what this if is all about.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So if that is the case, then we we update the score
Yeah.
by just grabbing the total from the division.
I suppose we probably could have done a method for that, right? Like division dot score would be like division dot total plus division dot bonus or something like that.
Yeah, so that if we had made division a class, then we could have done that.
Yeah, gotcha.
That might be it. But so here we just grab the total plus bonus.
Yeah. Okay.
Increment that to the game score.
Mm-hmm.
And then we just reset that division.
So that's why we set the total to 0, clear out the circles in there. What was the other property that it had? Oh, bonus. So that part's not going to change. That's fixed.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So one question I have is, I was thinking about this down here. I noticed like the way we're calling add circle to division with circle and division. Could we have handled that within circles? Like, could we have just given our circle like a this dot division or something like that? Or would that have been unwise? I mean, I guess it would have made it harder to clear a division, right? Because then we'd have to go through all the circles and say like, well, does this one have this division? Is this one in this division, sort of thing, right? As opposed to be able to just say division, clear it. All the circles are gone.
Right. So division is more of a collection of circle objects.
Right.
As opposed to a property of the circle.
Yeah. And it feels like it's smarter that way because I like the way this is working. Like this feels very straightforward for clearing out a division, right? It's pretty much what you'd expect. I think it's good for human readability.
Right, but it's also what you were describing
Hmm.
might, under other circumstances, be a better idea. It depends on what you need to do. Since in this case you're clearing out a division,
Hmm.
it makes more sense to have a division be easily clearable.
Right, as
Right.
opposed to if, for example, it was a game where when you clicked on a circle, it would tell you what division it's in. Maybe the other one
Yeah.
would make more sense, sort of thing.
Right, and you also have the option of maybe doing both.
Right, yeah. So that's something, okay. That's actually something I tend to grapple with when I'm like building a web app is like, how do we structure all this information? What do we want to make accessible from the other end? So, like, making it redundant like that, like you were saying, doing both, is that a pretty typical thing? Like, is that something I should be maybe a bit allergic to, or is that legit?
Oh, I think every circumstance might be different for
Right.
something like that. I'm not sure.
But in general, I guess the smaller your like your classes are and stuff like that, probably the better, just in terms of efficiency. Or
Yeah, well, in this case, um, that's kind of bordering on storing data in two different places. You kind of want a one-way data flow as much as possible. So,
okay,
um,
gotcha.
so yeah, probably you would pick one or the other, but it's possible to do both at the same time.
Okay, cool. All right, so there's just one more thing for us to talk about, and it's this. It's another getter, I guess, and it's score.
Yep.
So basically, it's just returning this dot current score. So would this have been any different if instead of dot score, if we had just done dot current score?
Dot current score.
Because that's where was it? Yeah, current score. It's basically the dot score is just getting that, right?
Right. Um, that might work. It's better to have that get property.
Yeah, yeah. It's not an anti-pattern that way, right?
Right.
Okay, so one thing I'm noticing, and again, like getters and setters are something I'm less familiar with. I'm actually kind of afraid of the class keyword, and I'll tell you guys why in a minute. But so because of that, I'm not really well versed in getters and setters. I mean, I took like an undergrad Java course, and they sort of talked about this, but that's a long time ago. Anyway, so I'm noticing like it's get score, and this looks like a function to me, right? Like it looks like it could take inputs and stuff like that. But then again, over here when we're actually doing this dot score, we're not like we don't see any parentheses here. So it looks more like a property that way.
Right.
So is that just typical of these getters that like well, okay, so hold on a minute. Like a set, if it was set, I would understand why it would take an input because you want to set it to something, right? Like it would take an argument. Whereas for these, I guess if you're just returning the value, it would never need an argument, or would it?
I don't think you would be able to provide an argument
For a getter. Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. So that's why we just don't bother putting in the parentheses here, I guess.
I think, well, the property or the parentheses, I think it'll let you do that, but there's no need to.
Okay. Gotcha. So it's just what do they call it? Syntactic sugar.
Syntactic
Mhm.
something.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha.
Also, just to jump in, the
Yeah.
reason
Sure.
we didn't do dot current score is because we don't want to give it like the underlying object that we are keeping track of the score. Because the user like you don't want you want the variable to be read only. So because you don't provide a set method, so you can only read from it. If you had used the current score, and then you could potentially change the score outside of the method.
Oh,
I gotcha. Yeah. Yeah. So it's an anti-cheating measure, I guess, right? All right, cool. So, Mike, is there anything else you wanted to say about your beautiful algorithm here?
no, that's about it. I hope everyone likes the ASCII art at the top.
That was probably my
How did you
favorite
do
part.
that? Actually, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's a Unicode circle that I found somewhere.
Gotcha. And I noticed that you can't like do Unicode in the code, but you can do Unicode in the comments.
That's right.
Something interesting about CF.
That is interesting. Yeah, because I have had that warning before. Like when you go to run it, it tells you like, well, no, illegal character, right?
Yeah.
I didn't realize you could put in the comments. That's good to know. Although I've noticed you can also like you can output illegal characters as well. Like there is a problem it was like one of those chess knight problems, and we wanted to do it in kind of a silly way. So we basically made a matrix representing the chessboard, and we actually put a knight character on there just by doing like string.from character code 9000 whatever it was, right? So it's possible to put them in the output. You just can't use them as an actual character.
Definitely.
Cool. Well, nicely done, Mike. Thank you so much for this incredible code here. This was a pleasure to go through. I guess we'll move on to Nano's code. So, yeah. Nano, you wanna take it away here?
Yeah, of course.
Okay,
All right,
cool.
so the first line is JS here in ES version. So this is a kind of linter. Do you know what linter is, Zero?
I'm so glad you mentioned it because the answer is no.
So linter is a tool to analyze the source code to see if it has any potential bugs or stylistic errors.
Okay, now when you say the source code, are you talking about like this code that you wrote here? Is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So JS here is actually like an online tool. You can actually just put your code in there and see if you see anything.
But are you actually like, is putting this comment in actually like making that happen?
Well, so it doesn't do anything in CF, but if you go to jshere.com, so it would read that comment and see that, oh, it has to use ES version 6.
Yeah, ES6, our favorite, right?
Yeah.
Definitely. So it's basically, okay, so just to clarify, if you had something, like if you said ES version 5 over here, then it would say, class.
Yeah, class, exactly.
Right,
Can't use that.
Gotcha, cool.
I think the industry tool is called ESLint. There's something that you may want to know.
Yeah. Okay. Appreciate that. Okay, ESLint. Let me make a note of that.
So yeah, it's a great tool. It can it actually helped me prevent multiple bugs.
In this or?
Oh, in my workplace.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. And then so the next line is ustrict. So ustrict is also an ECMA 2015 feature. It enables the strict mode.
Yeah, what does that mean exactly?
So one example is in strict mode, you cannot use undeclared variables.
Okay, yeah. So like global variables sort of thing, you mean?
Yeah, you can't use global variables either.
Gotcha. So you have to have like a const or a let style declaration sort of thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there anything else that ustrict does?
Like it just make every warning an error that's gonna stop your program. So instead of like the engine silently ignores your errors, those gonna surface up.
Right.
So yeah.
So it's kind of like, for example, if you had like like a really chill parent or something like that, you know, who's just like, oh, hey, don't worry about it, man. Everything's fine. Even if there are big problems going on, right? Like you'd sort of want to know, so I can get why, like, because JavaScript is, it's pretty chill about a lot of stuff, right? Like as opposed to a lot of other languages I've used that are like, whoa, what are you doing? So JavaScript just kind of goes with the flow, right? So ustrict is...
recommend it.
Yeah, got it. But hold on, before we move on from that, I just want to say, like, it's kind of strange to me how ustrict isn't like, we're not calling something. It's not like a function. It's just like a string that we're putting in.
Right, because you want it to be backwards compatible. So for example, if like you have a browser that like IE 10 or something, you don't want to call a function that doesn't exist, right? So if you have like a function ustrict, parentheses, that would break the browser.
It wouldn't know what
So
to do
the
with
way
it.
they did it
Okay.
is like they just make it like a string.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't break any old browsers, but the
So
new browser can still see that and gonna enable the strict mode.
gotcha. Right, right. So like an older browser would just be like, okay, they put a string here. I don't know why, but we'll just move on from that.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay. And so is this something you always use then? Use strict?
Nope.
When, like, under what
I,
circumstances do
to
you
be
want to use
honest,
it?
I don't even code in JS that much. Basically, I did a couple of applications, but it's like a year ago. Also, I don't do golfing in JS either.
Well, I wouldn't have guessed it, buddy. This is some pretty nice code you wrote here. But like, I guess what I mean is, would you say that it's a good JavaScript practice to always be using use
Yeah,
strict?
definitely. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay, I should probably start doing that. All right, so
Uh,
you've got some. Sorry, was there anything else you wanted to say about these first two lines here?
no, 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 no. You're
Okay,
good.
let's continue.
Okay. So like what that comment says, basically this code is just like my attempt at demonstrating the class syntax.
Hmm.
Some of the class aren't really necessary, but I tried to do them anyway because I wanted to show you how we could construct some or how we could use some of the syntactic sugar
Yeah.
in the new ECMA standard. Okay,
Well,
so the
I mean,
next,
yeah, it got you the win, buddy. But yeah, I mean, I definitely I went through this and there was a lot of stuff I wasn't really familiar with, so I appreciate that.
yeah.
So okay, please continue.
Okay, so the next section is the game configurations.
Yep.
Basically, we define some constants. We want to define these constants at the top of the file because, for example, if you want to change some constant, you just need to open that file and you see right away where the constants are.
Right, right at the top.
Okay, and then the first class we have is the tetris piece. So basically,
Hmm.
this defines the circle. It has the x, y, and the radius as the properties.
Hey, that looks kind
And
of
then,
familiar, doesn't it?
yeah, it does. Yeah,
I don't know, but something about
I
that.
think we have really similar ideas here.
Yeah.
Um, so also the next, it has one single method and that is a method to calculate the collision height with another circle.
Right. Yeah.
So basically, if you have two circles, you're gonna use Pythagorean theorem to calculate the height of the
Yeah, so that
yeah
is pretty similar, I think, to what Mike
yeah
did. Um, I I see like a couple differences. You use math.square root instead of the
yeah.
other exponent trick. You're using math.pow as well, which I guess is kind of old school. Is there a reason you went with the math.pow as opposed to the double asterisk?
No,
Okay.
it's yeah
By the way, the reason I asked that is because I actually did get a comment from a user a long time ago who told me that, as it turns out, the exponent, sorry, like the double asterisk, is actually a bit slower than math.pow. So I don't know if that's like a super.
interesting.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have guessed, but and I don't know if that's like a consistent thing or how marginal it is. But yeah, apparently that's the case.
Yeah,
Anyway,
that's very interesting.
yeah. So, okay, calculating the collision height though, because I'm noticing a couple things on this. The first thing I'm noticing is it's not taking in another piece, right? It's just taking the x and the radius of that other piece.
Right, because you are calculating the y, so you don't know the y yet.
Right.
You only know the x and the radius. So we're gonna calculate that y, and then we're gonna construct the new circle based on those info.
Gotcha. Okay. Um, and I'm also noticing there doesn't appear to be a method, at least not at this level, that's checking to see if they are going to collide. Is
Well, it's included in
okay.
the formula. So basically, if the x side is greater than the hypotenuse,
Mm-hmm.
so you see that check over there. That means that the circle wouldn't collide.
Sorry, which part am I looking at? Like the x side part,
The,
or
the if the if
yeah?
statement right below it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Right. Otherwise, there's no collision.
In a right triangle, the x side has to be less than the hypotenuse. If it's bigger than that, it's not a right triangle. It means that the two circles don't collide.
Hey, that's pretty smart,
So
Nana.
basically, I just collapsed two logic together.
Yeah, using the power of math. One of the greatest forces in the universe. Okay, so good. Okay, so I'm getting this then. Nice stuff. Very efficient. Please continue.
Okay. So the next class we have is a section class. So basically this class is for demonstration purpose. I could have just done with the array itself.
Yeah.
But I wanted to demonstrate how we could modify an existing class to put some extra dazzle in it.
And that's basically what inheritance is, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we have a clear method that is basically just resetting the array to an empty array.
And sorry, just before you go any further, I just wanted to talk about this syntax over here. So when we say it extends array, we basically mean it's going to have all the properties and methods as a traditional array object.
Exactly.
But then in addition to that, we're going to have this stuff. And then also in the constructor, when you say super, that's basically running the constructor of array. Is that correct?
Exactly.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay, but this constructor takes in an index, which means when we create a new section, it's not just like array with no argument. We will have to put an index in there. Okay, gotcha.
So index is like the index of this section. So it's like the bottom one is the 0 section, and then it goes to 1, 2 until it hits the maximum.
Yeah, gotcha.
And then, okay, so we have clear. We also have is full. Is full basically checks if the section contains the maximum number of circles.
Yeah.
Which is 4 in this case.
Right. And like this right here, basically anytime we wanted to call is full, we could also technically just say if section.length equals max pieces in section, but this is a lot nicer syntactically, right?
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. So
it just looks so shorter and cleaner in the other.
Oh, well, yeah, and it's words, right? Like it's like English language, so that's always nice. Okay, cool. So then we've got a getter as well. Yeah,
value is the property that determines how much value this section is worth when you like clear a section out, how much points you will get from it.
Yeah, so the sum of the radii plus the bonus.
So the sum of the radius and the bonus. Yeah.
So we have a reduce here. We're doing a this.reduce. That's kind of neat, right? Since it extends array, it has the reduce method built in.
Yeah.
Okay, so accumulator is basically the thing that, let's just take like a quick aside here to talk about the way reduce works for any of the viewers here. So if we had like an array of things here, I'm just going to make them underscores, I guess, then basically our accumulator would basically just start as this, right, by default. And then our other value
starts with a section bonus, actually, in this case.
Because you use that as a second argument, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So it's not there. It starts as section bonus. And then basically we have our piece.radius, which, so it'll start as this one. That's like, I used an R, but I guess I should use a P. So this is piece, right? Piece is always going to be like the next one in the array. And accumulator is going to start as the index times the section bonus. So basically it's, either 0, 100, 200, etc., right? For these variables. Or for these constants. And then basically on the first iteration of reduce, we're going to do whatever A was, whatever the accumulator was, plus the piece value, right? And then we'll move it on. Yeah. And then accumulator will be that sum. The next piece will be this one over here. It'll add that onto accumulator and then et cetera, right? So accumulator is just going to be, accumulating, right? So that's... I like the way you did this, actually. Normally when I do a reduce, I'm kind of sloppy about it. And I just do like A comma B, so this is smart. I'm gonna steal this word from you, accumulator. Good stuff. All right. And sorry, one more thing. This over here, if we didn't put the second argument for the reduce, it basically would just start as the accumulator would start as the 0th element and the piece would start as the 1 element, right? Okay, gotcha. All right, so that's get value, which is basically giving us the score from that section once we would clear it, right?
Hmm.
Gotcha. So I'm pretty curious about this next one. You want to talk about the Tetris class here?
Sure. So Tetris class is the the biggest object that holds everything else. So we have an array of all of the sections.
Yeah.
So it is taking in the division size. So this basically determines how many sections we will have. It's just the game height divided by the division size. So if we have like 1,000, the max size 1,000 pixel, and then we have each section being 100 pixels, so then we would have 10 divisions.
Yeah, gotcha.
Okay, so it's just construct that array. And then the next method is calculate max collision height. Basically is taking in X and R, and it's gonna determine whether this new Tetris piece will hit another circle or it will hit the ground, and it's gonna return the height of that collision location.
So basically that's taking in the X and the radius from that piece, and it's giving us, well, it's so we're calling this, right, from our piece method from before. Okay.
Yeah.
Or sorry, Tetris piece, was that yeah, Tetris piece. Yeah. Okay.
So Tetris piece is just like calculate the collision between two circles. So we have to like loop through every other circles to calculate the max height. So in here, let me talk about it a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
We could do a little bit of a performance boost by just looping through the looping in order. So you go from the highest section to the lowest section. And if you detect like a collision in the highest section, then you would only need to go one more step before you returning the height, because you know that a circle piece can only span at most 2 sections. So if you already know that it's collides at the highest one, then you would only need to check if it also collide with the one below that, and you're gonna compare those 2 sections to see which one has the max height.
Well, wouldn't it be just the maximum no matter what, though? Like basically you just go through. I'm trying to think if there's a situation where like there would be a collision at, let's say, division 5, but then the collision at division 4 would actually be like a higher
imagine
height.
if like you in division 4 you have a super big circle.
Oh, yeah, you're right. I can picture it. Okay.
Can you draw it out?
Yeah, I'm going to draw it out. So let's actually go to the proper whiteboard over here. So, okay. Yeah, thanks for bringing this up. Man, I didn't even think of that. Okay, good stuff. I'm glad we're addressing this because there was a comment. That was the thing. I was looking through these and I was like, man, I'm a little disappointed that no one did this height optimization thing, because I figured all you would have to do is go through each division. And here, let's say we've got like a really small one over here, and then like a really big one over here. Yeah, I was thinking like as soon as you find one in a division, you would just say break, stop it there, sort of thing. So, okay. Yeah, because technically, like, even though this one here is in a lower division than this one over here, if we were to look at the potential division height, or like collision height here, it could be a lot higher with that circle than it could be with this one potentially.
In this case, the circle never gonna span more than 2 sections, so we can just check 2 sections at a time.
Yeah. But I guess it would all depend on like the division sizes, right? Because they could be very small.
Yeah. So you're gonna have to do some complicated thing to determine how many sections it will span.
Yeah.
So definitely something I didn't want to do.
I don't blame you. But let me ask you this: if this were an official game, like if we did want to launch this as an app, sort of thing, is that the sort of thing that would be worth it?
I don't think it's so. with the current game setting as is, I don't think it's worth it at all because the number of circles are pretty small. So
Yeah.
it's like 10 milliseconds compared to 8 milliseconds. You're not gonna notice the difference.
Yeah, I gotcha. It'd just be very marginal. Yeah, there was sort of a comment about that. Is Kov or Cove? I'm not sure how to pronounce his name, but he's one of these like. Sorry.
Oh no.
You know the guy I'm talking about, right? He's like a
Yeah, I
superstar in
know.
the challenge
Yeah,
section.
he's very smart.
Yeah. So he made a comment in his that said something like it basically pointed out that since there's a limit on how many circles there could be in total, then that's basically considered like constant time, right? Like big O of one
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
thing.
yeah, I can see that.
But then again, I had mixed feelings about that comment because like couldn't you say the same thing about every one of the
Yeah,
challenges on here, right? Like since there's always
yeah,
guaranteed
it's
constraints.
so I think he it's more like that he meant that the number of the circles are less than a certain number, like less than 1,000.
Yeah.
So it almost gone that now. If the number of circles were like 1 million, then that would be a different story.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. And I mean, like, what is it, like 60 or something like that? I think is the maximum number of circles you could have on the
yeah,
screen at a time. So, yeah, it's probably not worth it worrying about any other micro optimizations from here, right?
yeah.
Unless we want to drastically change the game, but that's a conversation for another time, I guess. All right, so where were we? We've got our
Uh,
calculate max collision height. Actually, hold on. Before we go any further with this, can you tell me about composition? Because I'm aware of inheritance, but composition is something I'm less familiar with.
so composition, I'm sorry, composition is just a fancy word for a class that is composed of multiple other objects.
Okay,
So in here we have the this dot sections is like an array of other
sections.
sections. Yeah,
Right, which is
yeah.
itself
So
another object.
yeah, so yeah, composition is just like it has many other class objects inside it.
So then, Mike, you also used composition, I guess, then, right? Because like your game contained circles, or your game object contains circle objects, right? So is that considered composition as well, or am I misunderstanding?
Um,
Um, kind of. Well, usually when we talk about composition, we mean like instead of inheritance.
Okay.
Um, so like instead of subclassing a class and getting everything from it,
Mm-hmm.
we just use the parts that we want, and we compose our object out of that.
Okay, so like for example, in JavaScript we have a bunch of things that are considered iterables, right?
Yeah.
So is iterable something that objects are like inheriting from, or is that more of a composed sort of thing? Or did either of
Uh,
you guys know?
iterable sounds more like an interface.
Okay,
yeah,
maybe that's a bad example then. But you're basically talking about like inheritance is like if you inherit from an array, then you're getting everything that it means to be an array, as opposed to like just taking some of the properties you would want from different kinds of objects.
Um, yeah, I guess
Am
that's
I
pretty.
sort of getting there, or I don't know?
Yeah, it's like an a la carte way of constructing your object instead of taking everything that the superclass is made of plus that superclass's superclass.
Yeah, the all-you-can-eat buffet.
Yeah.
Okay, I gotcha. So, all right, sorry about that. Nano, you want to continue with our Tetris class? So we've talked about
sure.
calc max collision
So
height.
okay, and then the last one is just like so when you drop a circle, you know that it's gonna collide at some height,
Mm-hmm.
and you want to know which section it's gonna go to.
Right.
So it's basically what Mike did with that.
With a slight difference,
Uh,
though, right? Because you're not
yeah,
just getting the index of the section, you're getting the section itself, right?
yeah, that's basically a one-liner of what Mike did.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay, cool. So basically, all of this is part of the Tetris class. Everything else was part of the section class.
Hmm.
Sorry, we had the second class and we had the Tetris piece class. So I really like this, how you basically had 3 different types of classes here, each kind of doing their own thing and representing an important part of the game. Aside from that, we had these constants up here, but it's only now that we're actually getting to the actual roundTetris function. So when this thing executes, when we run the tests, basically this is the part it's looking at, right?
Right.
Okay,
So
sorry, go ahead.
So basically, this is like a high level picture of the logic. So do you want to scroll down a little bit? So every time a ratchet piece falls down, you're gonna calculate the collision height.
Yeah.
And then if this height is greater than the height that you specified, like 800 pixels or something, this means that the player has gone out of bounds. So you stop the game there.
Right.
And then
it'll just go right down to returning the score at that point.
Yeah, exactly. And then otherwise, it's gonna calculate the section that this new piece will fall into.
Yeah, and we don't need an else on that if, right? Because if it activates the break, it's never going to execute what's below it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then it's going to add this piece to that section. So basically, target section dot push new piece. You don't already know X and R, so you're just going to give it the Y coordinate.
Yep.
And then
which we've already calculated from up here, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And then if this section is full, so basically if it reaches 4 pieces, it's gonna clear out that section and it's gonna add the points of that section to the total score.
Right. Yeah. And then that's pretty much it, right? Until it hits one that game overs, or until it runs out of pieces, it'll just return the score at the end of that. This is good stuff. I have to say, I really like the look of this right here. This is extremely readable code. I mean, like, I don't even think these comments would be necessary, right? Yeah, because like I could just read this and say, okay, collision height, if it's bigger than game over height, we're going to break it. What section is it in? Put it in that section, add the score for that section if it's full. You know, like it's very, very easily readable. So really nice job on that. And that's basically because of the way you had set up all this stuff over here, right? Like we were talking about before, is full, you know, it's a lot nicer than if we were looking at it down there and we said like whatever it is, section dot length equals max pieces in section. So good stuff. Good stuff. Let's see, anything else you wanted to say about this sick algorithm you've written here?
I wouldn't say it's sick.
Come on, don't give yourself some credit, my man. It's absolutely sick.
I think the others has the same algorithm. Like if you look at the first page, I see like similar algorithms. Basically, my algorithm is just like their approach and then added some sugar and cherries on it.
Oh, yeah, and it was tasty. Let me tell you. I appreciate the sugar. Okay, so let's see. Let me just check if there's anything else I wanted to talk about here. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I've got a really important question for you guys. Because basically, you both used pretty heavy OOP, right? Object-oriented programming. That was basically like lots of objects in here, right? Okay, so what I'm wondering is basically there are other, like OOP is a programming paradigm, right?
Yes.
And there are other programming paradigms. So like, for example, functional programming. Are there other paradigms aside from that?
I do not know one. Do you know, Mike?
There's a bunch of them.
All right. So I guess what I'm wondering about programming paradigms is it a matter of preference or is it a matter of optimization? Like, is it like a choice like, oh, what kind of pants am I going to wear today? Or is it like, should I wear this parachute or not when I jump out of this plane? You know, like, is it the right tool for the job or is it just a matter of preference?
I would say it's both.
Okay.
It sometimes matters. So OP is generally slower.
It is, okay.
It's not like big. It's negligible, but because you have to create the object, it doesn't overhead of doing that.
Right, like in terms of memory cost and stuff like that?
Memory cost, yeah.
And execution time, I guess, because that's to run the constructor and stuff like that?
Yeah.
So as opposed to like I've heard functional is very fast, but is it going to be as readable as something like an OOP?
I think you can tell that with your own experience. Like, um, so OOP is generally more natural to me.
Mm-hmm.
You imagine everything as an object, and each object has their method.
Mm-hmm.
So you can picture them more. You can view them more visually in your head.
Yeah.
So that's what I like about OOP. It's just more easier to understand. And me coming in from like a Java background, sort of, I think that using class in ES6 is with ES6 syntax is like really intuitive to me.
So yeah, I see what you mean, and I can see why too, because like we were saying about the human readability, right? But that brings us to another issue, and I don't know if either of you guys are gonna have any more familiarity with this than me, but there was this article I read like a long time ago, right around the time I found out about the class syntax, like the ES6 class syntax. And it was basically this guy, Eric Elliott. I think this was the article over here. Yeah, so he's basically talking about the class keyword and how it's like really bad, how he doesn't like using it. And I didn't really understand what his issues were with it, but he made some pretty bombastic claims. Like, and he wrote other ones. Like, you know, there's another article about the same thing. So, like, it seems like he feels like there's some really serious issues with class. I think in one of the articles he wrote something like, it's the most dangerous keyword in all of JavaScript now. So, do you guys know anything about this? Do you have any opinions on this, or?
Go ahead, Mike. Sorry.
Okay. I'm not sure if I really have an opinion, because my JavaScript isn't all that recent.
I gotcha.
The reason, one of the reasons class exists is
Mhm.
because people were porting their object-oriented knowledge onto JavaScript anyway and using the word function instead of class, which made no sense.
It's kind of weird, right? Like you basically just have to look at whether it's capital or not and use that as your guide.
Yeah, and also I remember that there are like before a class there are like 4 different ways you can declare like a similar class like object.
Right.
So so like the prototype inheritance paradigm is really messy.
Mm-hmm.
So I think class is a cleaner way to introduce JS to programmers who has a different background.
Right, right. And when you say messy, you mean like syntactically, right?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, so yeah, I'll probably have to learn more about exactly what it is he had an issue with. But yeah, like I was saying before, because of that, I had been kind of skeptical of using class, but it seems like it's like safe enough, I guess. Like if I'm making a new app, I shouldn't be afraid of using the class keyword.
Well, if you're going to use it as classes are used,
Mhm.
you should use class so that other people know, so that they can infer, your intent.
Sure. Yeah, I see what
I
you
agree
mean.
with that.
Right, right. So it's like a clarity issue, I guess. Again, eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
At the end of the day, they call classes is just a syntactic sugar. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that definitely
the same
answers my
code.
question then. Okay, cool. Let me see. Anything else I wanted to ask you guys? Is there anything else the chat wanted to ask? I guess I'll plant that seed right now. But I guess in the meantime, I do want to mention, and this is kind of a special announcement for any of the viewers as well as our guests here. So I'm not sure when this is going to begin, but very soon I'm going to be introducing a, I don't know exactly what to call it, but something like a guest lecture series, right? So as you guys have noticed, I ask a lot of stupid questions. You know, I have huge knowledge gaps because my computer knowledge is mainly self-taught, and it's just like, you know, I'll discover one thing at a time sort of thing. I'm out in the forest just foraging for little pieces of info, right? So I have a lot of topics of things that I'm really unfamiliar with, and I have to say, like, discussions like this are really fruitful for me. Like, this is definitely, I feel like I benefit a lot, and hopefully the viewers do too, from getting the opinions of experts or at least more experienced programmers. So basically, what I'm going to be doing is releasing a list of topics that I want to learn more about, that I'd like to find some guests for. So, hold on a sec. Okay. Can you guys still hear me? Okay, cool. So basically, I'm going to be releasing a list of topics that I'm sort of looking for experts in, people who'd be willing to come on and have a discussion about that stuff, maybe teach me something, maybe we'll build something together. So I'm probably going to be, at least eventually, I want to do maybe one of those a week, just sort of have a day devoted to it each week. So that's something we're going to be starting. So I wanted to mention that because if either of you guys are well-versed and confident in any topics that are on my list, I'd be happy to have you back. I think this has been a really good discussion. Both of you guys have explained yourselves really well. So, thanks for that. And like I said, if it's something you're interested in, feel free to hit me up. Cool.
Yeah, if there's a topic that's I feel confident, I can do that.
Sure thing. All right. Well, is there anything else you guys wanted to add? Anything you wanted to promote while you're here, or anything else you wanted to say?
Not from me. But thanks you guys for hosting this up. Because it's also really a fruitful session for me. I did learn a little bit about some tips from my code. So yeah, thanks.
Hey, thank you, man.
Thank you.
All right, well, I guess we'll wrap it up there then. So yeah, thanks to everyone who was involved. Thank you guys for your code and everything. Hopefully we'll get a full-featured roundTetris app going at some point in the future so we can do some multiplayer games. But yeah, sorry I didn't have that available for today. So I guess the only thing left to say is big thanks to codefights.com for making all of this possible. I know I've learned a ton from Codefights. I don't know about you guys, but this is just one chapter in the long book of Codefights successes. So anyway, cool. Well, thanks for stopping by, guys. Like I said, you're always welcome back. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And I think I'm going to cut the stream there. So thanks to the viewers for watching. Remember to believe in yourselves. Anything is possible. And bye.
All right, bye.
All right, see you.